Hi, my dear Astro family. Today we will be speaking about this upcoming new moon in the sign of Sagittarius, which will be taking place on the 23rd of November, and it's going to be on 1 degree 37 minutes in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, um, what is Sagittarius? It's about abundance and growth and expansion. So this is going to be a huge topic for us. Uh, Before we actually start, I would like just to make an announcement that I have started this 12-week course on money and abundance. So if you are interested, it's not too late to sign up for it. We already had one lesson where we looked at the second, fifth, eighth, and the 11th house and how they differ when it comes to finances. So if you are interested, you can join. But let's get started with this new moon in Sagittarius. I mean, first of all, we have got so much emphasis on the sign of Sagittarius and overall the mutable signs. Now we have got 4 planets in the sign of Sagi, the sun and the moon, who are always forming a conjunction during a new moon period. But we also have got Venus and Mercury lingering around. But we have got so much energy going on in the mutable fields. We do have got Mars in the sign of Gemini, which is, by the way, out of bound and retrograde as well. We do have got Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces, also a mutable energy. And by the way, Mercury is also out of bound as well, which is starting its out of bound period, interestingly enough, around the 23rd of November also. So, what is the mutable energy? I mean, mutable energy is about flexibility. So, we are invited here to be flexible about something. We are invited to make changes, to shift from something to embrace something new, or gaining more knowledge, getting to know something, changing the mindset, but also it could indicate that our interest will be changing quite significantly also. Now, as I mentioned, the new moon is on 1 degree, 37 minutes of the sign of Sagittarius. So this is the purest form of Sagi, because it's on Sagittarius decan and Sagittarius dwarf as well at the same time. Now, the ruler of this new moon, which is Jupiter, is on 28 degree of Pisces, and it has just gone stationary. So that's something we're going to be talking about. Also, this new moon is actually in conjunction to Hera, which is going to be an asteroid. It's also on 1 degree of Sagittarius at the moment, and very tightly squaring Vesta in the sign of Pisces. Vesta has just entered the sign of Pisces, actually kind of today, and it's going to remain there till the middle of February. Now, firstly, I would like you to think about what happened, what might have happened what might have happened to you approximately at the end of April, beginning of May, and also what might have happened to you around the 5th of March. Why is that? Firstly, Jupiter has already been on 28 degree of Pisces before, and that was at the end of April, around the 30th, 1st of May, 2nd of May, basically the first week of May and the last week of April. And because it has been retrograde for about 4.5 months, it was very much about, you know what, we might have wanted to start something in April or May, but we didn't have enough resources for it. We didn't have optimism going on. And this new moon is actually giving us the opportunity to bring that back or to start something with it. The reason why I mentioned this 5th of March was because at that time we had the Sun and Jupiter conjunction happening with Shiat, and Jupiter is currently sitting on Shiat. So I'm going to also talk a little bit about Shiat as well. So was there anything special you wanted to start around that time? If you do so, then this is going to give you the opportunity or the hope, or you envision something bigger, or even you might have started something in April, May, or March, but you want to take it a step further. Now, as I said, this Jupiter is actually a stationary. Now, when a planet is stationary, it actually magnifies the planetary energy a lot more. Jupiter is stationary for about 5 days anyway. So what does Jupiter represent in the chart? It's about optimism, hope, wisdom, knowledge, but also something to do with legal matters, as well as travel, visa questions, um, also something to do with the higher mind, as well as higher learnings, and somehow to connect to the divine. But also when Jupiter is very magnified, it tends to be overdoing things. It can cause chaos in a sense because it brings so much and we don't know what to do. Now, the fact that we have got so many energies in the sign of mutable signs, and Sagittarius itself is a double-bodied sign, so it is half of a human and half of a animal, which could really talk about the two things are going on in our life, and we're going to have to choose which one to pay attention to. This Sagittarius energy is very visionary. It envisions a better future, but also it wants to learn and gain knowledge so that when the Capricornian energy starts, which is going to be about the manifestation, the crystallization of that knowledge, what I've gained during the Sagittarius moon, full moon or new moon, that I'm going to give shape and form to it. Most likely, this is enhancing your moral code as well, quite significantly. And in the world, it could actually talk about how the law is going to, or how the legal system is going to be changing. So Sagittarius is very future orientated. So one of the major questions with this new moon is that, what do you want to start? How do you want to impact your own future? Now, as I mentioned, Jupiter is on a fixed star called Shiat, and Shiat is associated with murder, suicide, drowning. It's a very malefic type of energy. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean that we're going to die, we're going to get murdered, we are drowning, and all those type of things. However, it could really talk about when we kind of get drowned in our sorrow, or when we are not optimistic, or when we are not looking at the future in a more philosophical perspective, then unfortunately, life is going to bring some problems which we need to focus on and which we need to kind of tackle somehow. So the Sagittarius new moon really wants to help you to review life from a philosophical perspective. It wants you to look in new directions, to find your own truth, to be inspired about something. You are meant to be learning from this Sagittarius new moon. It wants you to figure out in what ways you want to grow. Or there are still some type of lessons you need to apply. So this new moon will have us more focused on how, for instance, our money-making endeavors tie into our overall sense of purpose, well-being, as well as self-worth, really. I mean, Jupiter does talk about the rich in a sense, but it's also talking about what do I want to experience? It's a very interesting one because I think Sagittarius or the ninth house is a little bit difficult to understand. The reason why is because, what is higher mind and what is higher learnings and universities and all those type of things. But the key to understand Sagittarius is to broaden your horizon. When we kind of feel stuck and we need to move on and we feel itchy to move on, then we're going to have to learn, we're going to have to meet like-minded people, we're going to have to study, we're going to have to travel to gain a new perspective, which might motivate us to start something fresh. And the new moon is about new beginnings. Now, obviously, the previous new moons and full moons happened in the sign of Scorpio, where we were meant to be gathering our strength, to become more, to have more endurance, to kind of grow your stamina, if you like it. So it becomes a lot more brave now because the soul is ready to move into a new direction. We just need to gain the experiences so we can crystallize that once we get into the sign of Capricorn. Also, this Jupiter is still on the world axis, which is the 0 degree of Libra and Aries. And what it kind of indicates is that whatever is going down in our lives as a collective force, it's going to be quite big. Whatever is unfolding right in front of our eyes, especially with a stationary Jupiter, that's going to be big. So on a world scale, I also was thinking about that April, May time also as March. Obviously, the oil prices went up significantly. The food prices went up significantly. So it might be an indication that the oil prices will go up. Also around that time, unfortunately, we had some flooding going on in some parts of the world. So that might repeat, but a stationary Jupiter can represent it's going to be a lot bigger. I was thinking what I was doing at the end of April, and I remember I kind of stopped my investment portfolio because I expected a little bit of a crash. So that could repeat, but the fact that Jupiter goes forward, it can actually indicate that it's gradually going to be building up. Now, last year we had Sagittarius solar eclipse. So therefore, plenty of you might have experienced some huge changes in their life, especially in regards to the Sagittarian house cusp in your chart. And this new moon is going to talk to you about, okay, you know what, enough of the suffering, let's move forward. It's about advancement. It's about focusing on your goals. It's about increasing your understanding and awareness to gain courage to expand your horizon, and most likely to gain confidence as well, overall, to go ahead in life. Now, this is going to be happening, as I said, on 1 degree, 37-38 minutes of Sagittarius. So it's going to be affecting especially those people who have got any planets between 1 to 6 degree or 0 to 6 degree of the mutable signs. Now we're talking about Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. So this new moon, for instance, is tightly conjuncting my moon. And moon is in the 10th house and it rules the 5th house. But also it's the exalted ruler of my 3rd house. So those are going to be the topic which I'm getting the most impacted by. Something to do with career, communication, and love overall. So this is how you can actually have a look at your own natal chart as well to gain a little bit more understanding of what you might be expecting from this new moon. Now, because we have got 7 planets in mutable signs, especially Mars, which is playing a significant role here, being out of bound till about 4th of May on top of my head, being retrograde. It's currently sitting on 21 degree of Gemini, but that mutable energy can indicate that there is too much thinking going on. And therefore, sometimes it talks about mental problems in a sense. We cannot stop thinking for a second. But also, Mars is being squared by Neptune, and that can indicate that we are flooded with emotions as well. We just cannot make any logical sense of our emotions. Sagittarius is a dual sign alongside with Gemini and Pisces. Pisces is because it is represented by 2 fishes who are tied together, but they are swimming into 2 different directions. And the Gemini is something to do with the twin energy. So most likely it could talk about having 2 big themes in your life. Both of them are going in different directions, and I feel like I need to choose. This new moon is really much about moving forward, but at the same time, something which is hindering us from these improvements. Now, as I said, there is this ongoing Mars and Neptune square going on, which is important in this chart because this is the 2nd square between Mars and Neptune, and we're going to have one in towards February. And why it's important is because Jupiter is in the sign of Pisces. The modern dispositor of that Jupiter is actually Neptune. And Mars and Neptune can really talk about scam and fraud, but also feeling tired, the inability to act on something, or I have got the motivation, but I kind of feel like undermined. Whatever Neptune touches, it actually dissipates that energy. And then I get disappointed. Or with that Mars, I come up with some strategies, I plan something, but all of a sudden something else comes up, and then it drags my attention to something else. Also, it's important to mention that all these Sagittarius energies, what's happening right now, so basically with Mercury, Venus, Sun, and the Moon, eventually will be opposing Mars also. And the opposition is kind of like a little bit of a scale, where we are kind of juggling between two situations. So all of these energies are inviting you to be extra flexible, extra adaptable, to be moving around quite a lot if it's needed. But I think what this Jupiter stationary energy does to us, that it wants to restore our faith. It wants us to have optimism and hope and envision a better future, but also to have new experiences, to become more adventurous about something. I also find it interesting with this Venus and Mercury. They are on 10 degree of Sagittarius in the chart. And as I said, Mercury is out of bound. So definitely the mind can be very stretched in a sense, but it's actually trining Chiron quite tightly, which is on 12 degree of Aries. Now, Chiron has been here for a while. Sometimes in 2021, in the summer, it started its journey around that 12 degree, and then it's now retrograde. So it takes us back to that summer period. And this is really about healing something by words, healing relationships, healing our self-love as well, but also to gain better understanding of something, what was going on in our life, so we can move forward. The lowest manifestation of Sagittarius is that we become too opinionated. We know everything. We have got the answer to all type of questions. But the higher manifestation would be that, you know what, there is always room for improvement. There is always more to know. But the danger is that we become an eternal student. So I feel like this energy is about the practical application of our knowledge we have gained, adding some new territories to it, or new, information. And I'm going to start utilizing those. That's why Sagittarius rules anything to do with learning, studying. We never stop learning. We never stop studying, but we apply that knowledge to our everyday life as well. And how we can gain knowledge: by reading a book, traveling, talking to new people, and looking at other people's perspective, and allowing those perspectives to somehow change our opinions as well. On a bigger scale is definitely understanding what is going on in the world. Now, this new moon is actually very tightly squaring Vesta. And Vesta is the focal ability. Vesta is about the sacred duty, what we have. It's also talking about, Vesta is something which is passionate, it's convicted, it's dedicated. It does talk about sacred duties, sacred sexuality as well. They were the protector of the flame in the temple, but also they were the protectors of very important documents as well, of kind of like the rich and so forth. And they were not allowed to be looked at, or those men became a piece of stone. And they were meant to do this service for 30 years, starting at the age of 10. And that's when they could have started their own life. Sometimes it does talk about, again, delays of our personal wishes. Typically because we need to take full responsibility for what we have done in the past. And I feel like this new moon, who is extremely eager to start something new, is actually delayed a little bit. Vesta always has got this Saturnian quality to it. So it does represent to a certain extent some type of fear. They were living in fear, these Vestas, because what if the flame is going to get put out? And, we're going to get into trouble. Vesta, by the way, can represent gender political matters also. So that's a possibility that this topic might come forward, maybe in the form of a new legislation, or might something be changing slowly but surely. Also, Vesta can represent the female-dominated industries such as magazines, airlines. Vesta is kind of like a non-like devotion to a cause, project, person, or a belief that is sacred to you, especially in the sign of in the sign of Pisces. So devoting time and effort to your spiritual development. By the way, Vesta is also an investment asteroid. I'm a little bit scared to speak about investments because recently I had someone kind of slagging me off for trying to tell me that I don't know anything about investments and so forth because the stock market is 8% up. But we have got this FTX or whatever it's called, and that caused 16 million loss. And the crypto is all-time low, even though it just went down about 14%, but it hasn't been that low for a very long time. And they kind of felt like I wasn't right about my eclipse video where I dare to say that most likely there is going to be some financial problems around these fields. And, this Vesta Square could really actually still talk about slowly but surely it's going to get better. But we always forget that these low periods are an opportunity for us to invest. That's all I want to be saying about the investment part, because I know people are very sensitive about it. Now, what else do we see in this chart? The other one which I kind of wanted to talk to you about is to feel that your universe has got your back, because Jupiter, which is a huge gas giant planet, therefore it is associated with protection, but it's in the sign of Pisces. So it's about spiritual protection. And the fact that we have got this Vesta Square going on, it's very much about being on the fences of not getting scammed. Recently, I received so many scam emails, by the way, on my Facebook, on my YouTube channel, everywhere. So it's unbelievable, so just be very mindful about these because they are somehow hanging around. Now, this new moon is actually in conjunction to an asteroid called Hera. Now, if you want to be checking where your Hera is, its astrological number is 103. Okay, so it's an asteroid, so clearly it is moving around, right? So everyone is going to be having that somewhere else. And what is actually Hera? It's good to understand the mythological part of it because that is going to be giving us indications of what this might be talking about. Now, Hera was the queen of all the gods. She was the sister and the wife of Zeus. She was a Greek goddess, by the way, and she was kind of like in charge of the women, childbirth, and marriage. Now, Zeus really wanted her, but Hera was reluctant to get together with him. And what Zeus did, because he knew that Hera was fascinated by animals, and as I said, Hera kind of refused the matrimony with him. So he became kind of like this seducer. And he disguised himself as a cuckoo and perched on Hera's window and started tweeting in fear, kind of showed that he got injured somehow. And of course, Hera opened the window to rescue this poor animal, took him to her bosoms to comfort the animal. And then he all of a sudden resumed his true identity. And Hera became ashamed, and she went ahead with the marriage. Now they had some children. One of them was Ares, which was the god of war, Eris, which is the goddess of strife. They also had Hebe, the cupbearer to the gods, and Hephaestus, who was really creating these armors and so on. Now, and then Hera was really aware of the wandering eyes of Zeus. She tried to keep him on a tight leash, but it didn't really work out. So Zeus kept on cheating on her, and then Hera eventually kind of became tired of that, and she asked her children to kind of kill Zeus. By the way, she was very vengeful towards Heracles. She tried to prevent the birth because it came out of Heracles was a son of a mortal woman, and Zeus had an affair. So obviously she was extremely jealous. Now, from an astrological perspective, what does Hera represent in our chart? It represents marriage, being tricked into a marriage, but also childbirth, but also revenge, an unfaithful husband. It's kind of like the energy of vindictiveness, but also the fairness and the unfairness in relationships, equality in the relationships, and the fear of abandonment. Now, what does that mean in our new moon chart? Actually, it can highlight some of our relationship matters with others. And we might discover that someone is unfaithful in the relationship, but also how to move away from being jealous, how to be more determined, optimistic, and faithful that the universe is going to have our back and it's going to bring us a partner when we are ready for it. But definitely it brings in anything to do with fairness and equality in relationships. Most likely the childbirth and the marriage topic also going to be coming up with this new moon, most likely in the next few months. And there might be some legislation around it. And lastly, a couple of other things which I noticed. Vesta, which is almost on 1 degree of Pisces, is on part of imprisonment. Now, if you don't know the Arabic part, that's okay. But part of imprisonment can really talk about, psychologically speaking, that we are in a prison and we don't know how to break out of that. And we tend to be focusing quite a lot on that. But also it can indicate on a global level that someone is going to get into prison. And the new moon is actually on part of enemies, which can really talk about that I am my own enemy. But at the same time, I've got enemies around me who are stopping me from moving forward. So this is kind of like a uplifting new moon overall, I would say. It's about dealing with the past, moving forward, focusing on the right things, prioritizing things as well at the same time, gaining knowledge, just making sure that sometimes we take a little bit of a time to rest as well. Why am I saying that? Because Jupiter is still kind of like in the conjunction to Neptune. They are 6 degrees apart. We had the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction also at the end of April 2022. And that's exactly when pretty much the oil prices, went up really and all those type of things. But surely it really talks about how to get and how to receive, how to give something to others, and also that spiritual development, what I was talking about. And it's being squared by Mars, who is a little bit more rebellious, who is thinking about facts and data quite a lot at the moment, trying to sort out the data. So it's kind of like not seeing the forest from the tree. So we now have to step back sometimes and then look at the bigger picture with this new moon. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope you liked the video. And if you did so, please press like and follow me and all those goodies. Sign up for my Facebook channel or my Instagram, because I do daily updates there and I talk about the daily energies more with illustrated pictures, so you can remain updated about what is going on, astrologically speaking. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon. Bye-bye.